Hello, good morning. My name is Charles, Professor Charles Brennan, and I am the Dean of the School of Science here at RMIT University. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about the science degrees here at RMIT and available for all of you to participate in. These programs are world-renowned and allow all of our students to work across a variety of disciplines in science, and also to replicate the real world experiences that we will need once we start our own careers. During this presentation, there are moderators behind the scenes available to answer any question that you have via the chat. So please put some questions through the chats and let's have a good dialogue going. You won't be able to speak to ask the questions, but please type the questions as you go along. Via the chat function, and we will try to get back to you as soon as possible. But before you add a question, please have a read through all the questions that are already there, because there may be a question that is very similar to the one that you've already asked, and there may be an answer there for you. So please feel free to give it a thumbs up if it's a question that you were going to ask and that you've got all the answers to. And we will try to tackle some of these questions live, also at the end of the presentation when I stop talking. However, before I start, I want to give the acknowledgement of country. So, RMIT acknowledges the people of the Wurrung and Burong language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. RMIT University respectfully acknowledges their ancestors and elders, past and present. RMIT also acknowledges the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we conduct our business. Thank you. Next slide, please. You will have understood that RMIT, as one of the main universities in Australia, is committed to redefining its relationship in working with and supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' self-determination. The university's goal is to achieve lasting transformation by maturing its values, culture, policy and structures in a way that embeds reconciliation in everything that we do. In line with the principles of Bujundal, we are changing our ways of knowing, working and being to support sustainable reconciliation and activate a relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous staff, students and communities. Next slide, please. So one of the questions that I have to you, or what you might have to me, is why study science at RMIT? RMIT is a wonderful place. I love the structure and friendly environment, and we have a great campus setup. Next slide, please. In terms of our appearance here in Melbourne and elsewhere, we are relatively flexible and specialised. We have the ability to look at the programs that we offer and in those programs themselves build flexibility to allow for courses and skills to be developed. And those courses and skills in terms of giving you the opportunities for employability in the future. Some of those skills and opportunities are about experiential learning. So we go beyond the classroom, we go out into the field, we study, we have active participations. Normally those are both locally and internationally, and we're hoping that in 2022 and 2023 we will continue that international ability to go and exhibit and experience activities overseas. We also have great industry connections. RMIT, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, we have technology in our name, and RMIT's equipment and facilities are purpose-built, readily accessible, and provide dynamic learning environments for you and also for us as staff members. Next slide, please. In science, we have a range of different programs. So this just gives us a rough idea of some of the programs that we talk about. And I will be discussing them in a little bit more detail as we go along. But please, if you've got a specific question about a program, about how to enter a program or what that program is really about, we have course coordinators on in the back, and they will answer those questions. So we have programs about applied science, biotechnology and biological sciences, chemistry, applied chemistry, environmental science, food science and technology and nutrition, geospatial science, mathematics, statistics, analytics, nanotechnology, physics, and also surveying. And we also have space science. So we have so many opportunities there to develop a good background in terms of science, wherever you want to go. Next slide, please. In terms of the applied science programs, we have the opportunity to have single degrees, so that a named degree, which is in this case Bachelor of Science, Applied Sciences. But in that BSc of Applied Science, we also have majors. So we can have biological sciences as a major, or applied chemistry as a major, physics as a major, applied science as a major. What the major does is really speaks to your passion and your interest in the science degree. So if you've got an interest in applied chemistry, but you want to take an overarching type of degree like a BSc in applied sciences, you can delve a little bit deeper into applied chemistry or physics. We also have, and you'll see this reoccurring, some double degrees, so that we have not only the science behind education and facilitation, but we also have other things. And certainly business management is one of the strong points in terms of the double degrees. So we can have applied science and you learn science, but you also have the business management that goes alongside it. So that's a great advantage in some instances. And again, a double degree in the applied sciences area is nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is one of the up-and-coming areas of research and science that we are really investigating in and leading in research. Next slide, please. We have a specific Bachelor of Science in Biotechnology, and we can have that biotechnology degree in association in a double degree with biomedical science. And that gives us the flexibility, or gives you the flexibility of understanding a little bit about how biotechnology can be applied in real life examples in the biomedical science disciplines. On top of that, we also have the prospect of an honours degree. So if you would like to do a little bit more research and go potentially into a master's or a PhD, these honours degrees give you the grounding in terms of research and applied experimental work. And in this case, we have a Bachelor of Science Dean's Honours Scholars and also Bachelor of Science in Biotechnology at the honours level. Next slide, please. In biological sciences, we have the BSc Biological Sciences, but we also have a double degree with business management to give you that experience of the managerial aspects if you want to go into much more of a business-related biological science employment later on. And again, we have the honours structure where we have the Dean Scholar for exceptionally hardworking students, and also a Bachelor of Science in Biology. So you can have biological sciences and biology in the honours aspects. Next slide, please. In chemistry, we have a single degree in terms of the Bachelor of Science in Applied Chemistry, and that really gives you the fundamental aspects of organic, inorganic chemistry, a little bit of biochemistry coming in there, understanding the basic principles of how chemistry can be applied in everyday situations. We can have this with a double degree in terms of we have a Bachelor of Science in Nanotechnology, and applied chemistry, and there certainly is a link between nanotechnology and applied chemistry. We have it in terms of double degree of Bachelor of Business Management and also Bachelor of Engineering. Many of the jobs out there at this present moment require an interest in both chemical aspects of science and also engineering. So that Bachelor of Engineering gives you an understanding of chemical engineering and gives you an opportunity to go into a lot more employment opportunities. The honours degrees there, again, are the Bachelor of Science in the Dean Scholar and also a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, where you can then progress on to those masters or a PhD if you would love to. Next slide, please. In environmental science, we specialise in a Bachelor of Science in Bachelor of Environmental Science, which looks at environmental chemistry, toxicology. It looks at sustainability. It looks at soil and microflora, plants and animals. And we can have that with a double degree that has a little bit of engineering in there as well. So you have the dual facility of having a Bachelor of Environmental Sciences with that engineering aspects and straight through to an honours programme as well. We have Bachelor of Environment and Society, where you have a little bit more of that governance and sustainability aspects. And again, we can connect that with the Bachelors of Business so that we have environmental science and management. And we have that honours for a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Sciences, which builds on to potentially more research where you can develop your skills and go further into a PhD. And many of our students that do the honours programs or the Dean Scholars programs do stay with us for another 3 or 4 years to get their doctorate, their PhD. It sounds like a long time, but actually they find it really rewarding, and that's a really interesting avenue to pursue. Next slide, please. We have a single degree Bachelor of Science in Food Technology and also Nutrition. So this comes in terms of food science and technology in general. So obviously food is one of the most important aspects in terms of Australia. Food and diet and nutrition are key and are really high employability courses. Many of our students go out there and before they finish their degree already have a job lined up in the food technology or nutrition area. We can also have that again with that double degree in business management so that we have an understanding of food science, food technology, nutritional sciences and management, how to manage those situations. And we have the honours area where we can have a Bachelor of Science in Food Technology as an honours degree. So, you know, graduates can be employed in research, in industry, in terms of government research organisations. There's a whole area of employability that we can talk about later on. Next slide, please. We have geospatial science as well, and this is really interesting because the single degrees of geospatial science are really connected with the Earth, as you would gather, looking at the structure of the Earth, looking at the land that we use, looking at sort of areas of how we can map that land, and looking at satellites and digitalization, artificial intelligence in terms of understanding a little bit more about that geospatial science aspect. And that merges also very neatly into a single degree in Bachelors of Space Science. We have a really interesting program there in terms of understanding what space is. That can be in connection with physics and understanding the spatial aspects of our land and also the environment around us. We have honours programs as well in terms of Bachelor of Science in Geospatial Sciences. And again, many of those students then further their degree and go on to either further studies or go into government research organisations such as CSIRO, where they have very well paid jobs. Next slide, please. Alongside that space science and geospatial science, we actually also have a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Surveying, particularly in surveying, which is accredited. And many of the degrees that I've been talking about have got some degree of accreditation so that you go into a society, a network, and you are able to progress through employability aspects there. So this Bachelor of Applied Science in Surveying allows you to become a surveyor. and that's a very popular discipline area at this moment in time. Again, you can study the honours, the Bachelor of Applied Science in Surveying, and further your understanding a little bit further. Next slide, please. In mathematics and statistics and analytics, we have a range of different types of programs available. Perhaps the simplest program in terms of not necessarily being simple to partake in, but the most defined one is the Bachelor of Science, Applied Mathematics and Statistics. And as the title says, we're looking at applying those mathematical skills and statistical skills in looking in data analysis and how those data analysis can be applied in the real world. And that gives you a real toolbox in terms of industry connections and the flexibility to use your degree in a number of environments. We also have the connection with the honours aspects in terms of Bachelor of Science and also Dean Scholar in Applied Mathematics and Statistics. And again, that reinforces the learning outcomes of some of these programs and gives you a little bit more of that experiential learning and working with industry to tackle real life problems. Next slide, please. We have nanotechnology and a single degree in a Bachelor of Science in Nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is a really fundamental aspect of all of engineering and all of science at this moment in time. Understanding the chemical aspects of nanomaterials, understanding their physical properties, but also understanding how we can use nanotechnology to advantage ourselves in terms of nutrition, in medicine, in food, in all sorts of applications. So that Bachelor of Science in Nanotechnology is really a hot program at this moment in time. It can be taken as a double degree with the Bachelor of Science, so applied sciences or chemistry or physics as another major, so that you don't necessarily just go down the nanotechnology aspects, but you can have a side hobby or an interest, let's say, in chemistry or the physical applications of that nanotechnology, and that's really interesting. Next slide, please. In physics, we have single degrees. We have the Bachelor of Science in Physics, and we also have that connection with the Bachelor of Space Science. So space science straddles both physics and also geospatial sciences in terms of understanding how physics and space itself are paramount in terms of exploration. We don't actually send you up in rockets. I apologize for that. It would be really great if we could send you up into space, but that's a bit expensive for a university. But so saying, our research is aligned to those type of projects. And we've got researchers who are working on sending robots to Mars or to the Moon and looking at space exploration. So it's a really fantastic area. And physics underpins that. The understanding of physics in terms of optics and in terms of nanotechnology, in terms of the physical environment around us is crucial with those understandings. And that's why we have double degrees in terms of Bachelors of Nanotechnology with physics, or we can have those honours degrees in terms of Bachelor of Science in physics, but also that Dean Scholar aspects in terms of physics and physical sciences. Next slide, please. We have a range of pathways available to us. So if a pathway doesn't suit you, and if you are coming into a university from a slightly different pathway, please make note of the website, pathways.rmit.edu.au. And they will give you a little bit more information about how your specific pathway will fit into a bachelor's or an educational framework within RMIT. Because in RMIT we have associate degrees and we can build on those associate degrees into a bachelor's degrees so that that pathway will only take 3.5 years, for instance. Or we can have a certificate, level 4, diploma and bachelor's degree. So these are just examples of some of the pathways that we have available to students if you're coming from a slightly unconventional route. Don't be afraid to ask us. We're there. And please sort of look at that website, pathways.rmit.edu.au, to give you a better understanding of how you can become a student at RMIT, how I can welcome you here at RMIT, and how we can develop your passion and interests in the degree that you want to follow. Next slide, please. I've talked a little bit about our facilities, and our facilities in RMIT are fantastic. I've been in 9 universities across the world, in the UK, in New Zealand, in Australia, and also in Asia. So through those 9 universities that I've been employed at, I can honestly say that RMIT have wonderful high-tech purpose-built laboratories. Our microscopy, microanalysis facilities, our physics areas are really out of this world, and that's a slight pun, a dad joke about space science, and I apologise. But we also have food pilot plants, which are mimicking what you would see in industry. And that's really interesting because you get hands-on experience in using equipment that many other students in other universities don't have the opportunities to use. So I would say that our facilities are really groundbreaking, and industry comes in and uses those facilities alongside our students at undergraduate or postgraduate level. So I think if we had tours available, it would be wonderful to show you those tours, but unfortunately we don't at this moment in time. Next slide, please. I talked a little bit about the facilities and industry coming in and using them, and that sort of segues onto our industry connections. One of the most important aspects of your study here at RMIT is building your understanding of how you can apply the theoretical science into real life projects. So most of our research, most of our curriculum is developed about projects and project delivery. So your core subjects will have electives, but those electives and core subjects both also have work integrated learning projects to build that applied research, to build that understanding of industry projects, because we feel that it's really important for you, if you want to be employed after spending 3-4 years at a university, you need to have those hands-on skills or understand those capabilities in those projects. We have simulated work integrated learning, and that's what we call WIL. And those programs are embedded in our courses and our activities, so that you have a real life experience of working in a placement or in a factory environment. And again, that gives you greater employability in the future. And we also have direct industry placements where you go out into industry. It could be a nanotechnology firm, it could be a space science firm, it could be a cybersecurity firm, where you can actually learn side by side with professionals and how to apply that theoretical aspects that you've been taught during your educational progression into a real life example. And that's really powerful. Next slide, please. These are just some of our industry partners. And as you can see, we have CSRO, Melbourne Water, we have Unibank, we have Simplot, we have Alginate, we have a whole range of government bureaus and bodies that we work with. And so having those connections not only provides you with work experience, but provides you with a foot in the door in terms of employability. For instance, in food technology this year, we had 60 of our students go out and take part in employment activities using industry projects. And of those 60, 57 of those have already got offers for jobs. And that just shows how powerful that is in terms of employability and making sure that you've got the opportunity to develop your careers beyond a university. Next slide, please. When we talk about industry partners, we also talk about the partners not only in Australia, but also Oceania. So we have many connections in New Zealand, and I have many connections in New Zealand, but also in Asia, in Europe, America, and Africa. And these are some of the countries where we have connections with universities or industries or research institutes, where you can go and have some opportunities of partnering in projects or activities. So for instance, RMIT has a base in Vietnam, and we would love to have the opportunity for more of our Melbourne-based, Australian-based students to go over to Vietnam and experience Vietnamese culture, or China in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area in Guangzhou, or Europe in terms of Barcelona, where we've got a campus as well. So there are great opportunities not only to travel the length and breadth of Australia, but the length and breadth of the world, and with space science beyond. Next slide, please. And this is where we're really strong in terms of career outcomes. We want you to go away from being a student at RMIT and in 3-4 years' time be employed, and employed in a range of careers. Careering in terms of analytical laboratories, medical and research laboratories, renewable energies, chemical processing, government organisations, and all sorts of other things. Next slide, please. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an insight about potential careers and opportunities at RMIT. I hope that gives you an understanding of some of the degrees. And I've been following a little bit in terms of the chats that have been happening. So please carry on asking those questions. But the first question I see is, what are the opportunities for gaining work experience in industry during your degree programs? Well, as I said, those will activities. We embed experiences with students to go out into industry, to work alongside practitioners, and also to have an understanding of using practical skills as much as possible. So those are open to everyone. Some criteria exists, and sometimes it's not possible to have those activities. We've found it really, really challenging with COVID-19 at this moment in time, but still we have many, many students out there in industry working on those industry experiences. Are there any other questions in terms of? Second question, do your programs offer opportunity to undertake research? Yes, is the answer. So we really like showcasing our research and bringing that research into reality. We believe that research shouldn't be just something that is done in the laboratory by doddlery-oed professors like me. It should be done by you. You should experience that right from year one. And that's where you get a better understanding of what research really is. And the programs that we offer research experience to are actually all of the programs that we've mentioned. All of those programs have some research activity. So we have another question in terms of study of biotechnology, specifications into the study of fungi. Well, fungi are really interesting. We do a lot of work in terms of algal material, which isn't fungi, but we also do a lot of work in terms of mushrooms and fungal use in terms of bioreactors, and also looking at biocatalysis of materials, but also in terms of health and nutrition, because I eat an awful lot of mushrooms myself, and they are very rich in bioactive ingredients, and they're very useful from a cardiovascular aspect. Another question that I can see is, are there opportunities to take electives outside of the science in degree programs? Hopefully you would have seen from some of the examples, we actively encourage in many circumstances, you getting a more rounder experience. So business management, for instance, is something that we would really ask you to think carefully about, taking some business skills or management skills in terms of the science degrees. There are other electives in terms of communication. There's electives in terms of philosophy and marketing. Yes is the answer. You can take some of those electives and the course is structured so that you'll be able to do that throughout the 3/4 years that you'll be here at RMIT. I'm just looking for another question. Can you explain more about what Dean Scholar program involves? Does this allow for research? Well, the Dean Scholar is really focusing on those students who think that they would want to do an academic type of progression. So where you are really interested in research or research activity, where you are a highly achieving academic student who wants to potentially go into a PhD or a research position. And we try to foster that interest in terms of research and allow you to take part in research projects, group projects throughout the 4 years that you'll be here. And that gives you a little bit more of a grounding in terms of understanding the skills of research, looking at experimentation, looking at data analysis, and also then looking at the opportunity to further that in terms of creating research projects yourself. So project management of research is really important, as well as going into the laboratories and understanding some of the equipment that we use. So it could be HPLCs or GCs, gas chromatography, or it could be looking at nanotechnology or other aspects. So yes, the Dean Scholar project does involve a fair amount of research. One of the comments that I've just seen is that I have to also explain that there are some degrees where there is a subject split between the city campus here in Melbourne and the campus that we have in Bundoora. And sometimes those are completely separate. Sometimes you are based wholly in the city, and sometimes you are able to split the first and second year, for instance, in the city, and the third year or the fourth year in Bundoora campus. And that really depends on where the equipment is and also where the resources are. Do all your programs require the same level of maths at VCE level? That's a really good question. I will leave the experts in the chat room to answer that in a much more structured way. But the answer is no, not necessarily. So we do have some flexibility within the level of maths in terms of entry requirements. But I will let the people in the chat room, the academics, the program managers, answer that. What is the gender ratio for mathematics? I think the gender ratio for mathematics is about 60-40, so 60 males, 40 women. But we're actually actively trying to encourage that in a much better balance. In terms of the number of the gender ratio in terms of your lecturers, it's the other way around. It will be 40 male and 60 female. So we're really trying to encourage women participation in STEM courses, and that is having an impact here at RMIT within science. Any other questions? I'm just having a quick look through there. I apologise for my slowness of reading some of these questions, but it's a Sunday morning and the sun is beginning to shine, and that's good. That's a good question. What sort of areas of employment are there available in environmental science? Well, That's quite range. It really depends on the discipline that you look at developing, so your interest. Within the environmental science BSc, we have the opportunity to study electives as well, again, in terms of chemistry or in terms of physics, in terms of food, in terms of microbiology. So some of the environmental scientists go into environmental microbiology, for instance. Some of them look at soils and soil science. Some of them look at agriculture. Some of them are looking more at toxicology and environmental protection. So there's a whole range of different types of environmental science employment opportunities out there. There's even sort of the fisheries area and looking at a marine biology type of aspects. So the world is your oyster to a certain extent, depending on the mix and match that you have of the core subjects and also the electives that you have. Is RMIT accepting applications now from international students willing to study in Australia? I think the answer is yes. We are accepting applications, but we also really taking a close eye in terms of what the border controls are and border regulations are. All universities in Australia would love to open the borders as quickly as possible to welcome as many of our international students into Australia as possible. But whilst that's not happening, we're delighted to help international students through partner organisations. And also we're delighted by the resurgence of having a large number of national students. It really depends what also you mean by international students. I've just come over from New Zealand, and potentially that could be regarded as an international area as well, although New Zealand and Australia are connected. I'm just looking at some more questions. Apologies. My computer is a bit slow at this moment in time. In the classroom studying science, is it more of a friendly or competitive environment? Ah, yes, that's interesting. Do you want it to be competitive, or do you want it to be friendly? It's up to you to a certain extent, but we try to be as friendly and as open as possible. And we want our students to succeed, to develop their knowledge and their education. And really, in terms of that, I think you've seen in the chat, that's really about collaboration and teamwork and those other softer skills, as sometimes are referred to. We value collegiality, and we would really like us to be a friendly environment for all students to participate in terms of their education. Can students start their degrees in mid-year? Some students, some programs do have a mid-year entry. However, as always, it's quite nice in terms of the educational pedagogical way forward to start at the beginning of the year. But you do have the opportunity, if there are reasons why you can't start at the beginning of the year, to start it mid-year. But I would say that needs to be discussed in terms of what type of programs, what type of courses, what type of electives that you could choose at that particular moment in time. because what we're trying to do is make you succeed, develop a culture of success and innovation. And sometimes that's harder if you do come in mid-year, but there is that possibility. What are the benefits of doing a double degree? Are they the same length as a single subject degree? No is the answer. A double degree does take a little bit longer. It really depends on how quickly and how efficiently you can use that. Sometimes instead of being a 3-year degree, it turns out to be a 4-year degree, but sometimes you can make that into a 3.5-year degree by creatively using the summer semesters and things like that. What are the benefits of doing a double degree? Well, it gives you a little bit more variety in terms of, for instance, my children, I have 4 and they've all gone through university. The most recent one is doing a double degree in terms of biotechnology and biomedical sciences in New Zealand. And one of our other children did business and policy. And that means that they have 2 strings to their bow when they're actually looking at careers, so that the one that had the business and policy degree has now gone into government positions in New Zealand, looking at policy management and policy selection. Ruth, who is our youngest, who is doing the biotechnology and biomedical science aspect, she's looking at then developing that onto a master's or a PhD in biomedical sciences and a research in that aspect. It gives you the flavour of both subjects and gives you the experience and knowledge to have or to meet quite a lot of the opportunities that are asked for in terms of employability. Do your programs have much practical work? How has COVID affected this? Now, yes, COVID certainly has affected it, and I can't belie that in terms of we have had a lot of issues in terms of the practical aspects and being allowed to go into the laboratory environment. And you would see that from the government and their policy of undergraduate students and students at higher education. But wherever we can, we have practical experiences within the courses. And we've tried to put those back into the courses so that you can actually go into the labs, you can go and use equipment, you can have that experiential learning, you can go on field trips. Aside from that, we also have actually developed online labs, and we have a virtual lab in terms of LabStar, which gives students an experience of that practical working environment. We have staff and also research students who are running laboratories and then putting those videos up on the learning portal so that you can see how to use equipment, even if you don't get the opportunity to come in and use that equipment. So we're trying to embed as much practical experience in our programs as much as possible. I'm just looking for another question. What sort of communication and professional skills are taught which prepare students for moving into industry? That's a really important question, and that goes back to what I've been talking about in terms of employability. We want you to be employed as soon as you leave RMIT if possible. And so we have to build in communication skills such as report writing. I don't mean essay writing, I mean report writing, when you're sort of generating reports in terms of employment aspect. Looking at giving presentation skills and developing your presentation skills so that you are confident to give a presentation and talk about data. Data analysis is really important in terms of that, and understanding how to handle data using Excel sheets and understanding how to chart those type of things. But also in terms of professional skills, it's team working, it's building teams, it's developing that understanding of collaborative network and collegiality. It's those skills that are really important. Looking for information, searching for information, information retrieval. Those are skills that you will have had experience of at school and elsewhere. And we look to try to build on those, to develop those and encourage a greater depth of analysis of those. So you can therefore help in terms of your employability skills. I see a question there in terms of what careers there are in biotechnology. I think that will be answered in the chat, but it's so many. You have so many biotechnology startup businesses nowadays in Australia and also globally. You have technology companies in terms of understanding things such as genetic engineering, or you have technology in terms of nanotechnology or catalysis or things like that. So some of those are with those startup companies, some of those are with larger companies such as Sanitarium or CSIRO or Mondelez or Nestle or people like that. We also have the opportunity of using those nanotechnology and biotechnology skills for forensic science, for instance. So perhaps you want to be in a police squad looking at forensics or things like that. And then again, we have connections with hospitals and universities. So you might want to extend into biotechnology and biomedical sciences in terms of research, or go in terms of government bodies, in terms of biosecurity, environmental technology, environmental toxicology, those type of experiences. Thank you for all these questions. These are really great questions. I just wish that it could have been much more of a live event where we could have had much more of a discussion. I'm undertaking a degree. I want to undertake a degree in space science. Will physics and maths that you're studying now help you in the future? Yes. No matter what type of degree you're doing, Jake, physics and maths are always good. But if you want to do space science, they're essential, I think, in terms of understanding that aspects of space science and the degree in space science. What advice would you give to students who are not sure which degree program to take? It's a really good question. If you're unsure where your passion lies, I would suggest take a science degree that has little bits of those areas embedded in the degree in the first semester and also in the first year. And BP 229, and that's the BSc in science itself, is a good example of that. It has a lot of small snippets of experiences in chemistry, in biology, biological sciences, biotechnology, in maths, in physics, in geospatial science, environmental science. And you can then think about what aspects of that science degree is really something that you're interested in developing on. And you can pick and choose the core electives that you want to choose to develop a greater understanding, a greater foundation of that aspects. So there's a question there about online learning and how things in 2022 will be. Will there be more online experience? I'm sorry, I'm a scientist. I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but I would hazard a guess that in 2022 there will still be online teaching and lectures and lectorials. there'll be online support, and there may be online experiences. I am hoping that we will have a blended learning outcome so that we will be involved in getting some practical sessions and real life tutorial sessions where we have either Teams or Zoom discussions, but also face-to-face discussions in semester 1 and semester 2 next year. So we're looking at the opportunity to bring as many of those learning experiences back to face-to-face as soon as we practically can, because academics and students really value that integration of that learning experience, where you can sit and talk to each other face-to-face, that peer-to-peer support that you get, and also the added bonus of being able to ask cheeky questions to academics is really good. Are there any student societies to allow students to meet outside their studies? Yes, there are a range of student societies that we have. We have student societies in terms of things like sort of environments and the science disciplines, in terms of food technology, or in terms of physics, that look at the study aspects. But outside of the study, there are also things such as, I believe, drama and football. I mean football with a round ball, like Premier League football, not this football in Australia that we have, cricket and other types of things. So there's sports societies, and certainly there's sporting facilities on site, on campus, on both of our campus, that you can partake in. And there were other types of student activities, and certainly that was one of the draws why I went to my university many years ago, to participate in those student societies and have a student experience. Oh, thank you. Yes, the Physics Student Society has staff student functions, and also they have in the Food Science Club, they have staff student debates and things like that. So it's not as dry when we talk about physics or food or maths clubs. They're not dry clubs, they're actually engaging in interactive type of clubs. Indeed, and the Bioscience Club has run industry career events, so that helps people in terms of employability, meeting up with industry, meeting up with connections, and it's developing those connections over your period of time that you're here at RMIT that gives you that functionality in terms of getting jobs, highly paid jobs if possible, as soon as you get out of a university sector. I'm just looking for some more questions. We've got 5 more minutes left on this chat. What sort of jobs do students who study food technology go into? Well, they can go into the food industry. You can be a processor or a researcher. Some people think about labeling and dietitians type of role, and they go more in the nutritional side of things. In that food technology area, and that's where my speciality is, so I'm going to hog it for a moment or two. In that food technology area, you've got the opportunity to stay within Australia, but also go across the whole of the world. So I've had students in New Zealand, where I've been recently in my old university, go to America and work with Kellogg's and their area, or go to Singapore and work with Mondelez, or go to France and work with Mondelez, go to Germany and work with Kraft and people like that, go to Switzerland and work in Lindt, in the chocolatiers. You have the opportunity to do whatever you want. You can even stay on and do a PhD with me. So that could be a frightening experience for something in 5 years' time, but and then become a lecturer and a professor, given time. So just looking for some more questions to round up this session. It's been really great. Thank you very much. I'm looking to study a Bachelor of Science Biotechnology degree. I'm studying VCE 3/4 chemistry, but have only completed half biology. Will I need to do extra study in biology as part of my degree to catch up? Probably yes, but in that first semester that we talk about, the first few months that you come here at RMIT, we have a range of courses which give you a taster session in terms of biology, in terms of physics, in terms of mathematics, and that would help as a little bit of a catch-up. And also it will give you a direction of what courses that you need to develop a little bit more from, and where you need to focus a little bit more of your attention. So I don't necessarily see it as a negative aspect. It gives you the opportunity to grow and develop that aspect of biology if you wanted to. I think we've got a couple more minutes now left. If I start with a Bachelor's of Science, can I still graduate with a Bachelor of Technology? There are always opportunities that if after the first semester, if after the first week, if after the first year, you feel, no, this degree isn't the best degree for me, you can swap. And one of the good things about having a relatively common first semester is that all students will be undertaking a similar block of courses for the first 3 or 4 months. And then you'll be able to choose which type of flavour of bioscience or biotechnology that you want to use. Are there any courses on climate change or sustainability? Yes, there is a compulsory course, a STEM-wide platform course in sustainability. Sustainability is one of the issues that is really something that RMIT would like to be an advocate for, and not only in the environmental science aspect and biology aspect, but also in terms of physics and maths and geospatial. So that first year course in sustainability takes you all the way through climate change and other aspects in terms of artificial intelligence and the application of sustainability in employment opportunities. Yes, and we also do have a platform course, which is a first year course, hopefully, in artificial intelligence, talking about AI, talking about robotics, and also looking at the ethical questions about artificial intelligence and whether or not that is where we should be focusing a little bit more of our research and understanding about. So I think our time is coming to an end now. It is 12 o'clock, and I'm sure you've also got some time to carry on with your Sunday afternoon activities. If there are any other questions that you have, please feel free to contact us. Please feel free to carry on just putting a few of these questions in the chat, and we will have a quick look at them as they appear. But contact us, contact our recruitment aspects, and send us your queries, and we will be delighted to answer them. And hopefully we will have the opportunity to have on-site campus tours in the near future if we get out of lockdown sooner rather than later. And please participate in those, because that will give you an understanding of the resources that we have and also allow you to talk face to face to some of the key academics of the courses. So I just would like to say thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for your participation in the questions, and it's been a real pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope that I will be welcoming you at RMIT in March. Goodbye.